Thanks for the pretty kind introduction. It's wonderful to be here. I know taking a little bit of an unconventional route, picking the podium, I'm feeling a bit old right now, so I'll sort of stay away from the free mic. But yeah, it's wonderful to be here. This ET-GBS session has been pretty eye-opening. And I think the prompt that I got for my session as well, the power of an entrepreneurial mindset, to me also took me back a little bit, because when you hear the term power of an entrepreneurial mindset, it's one of those things that sounds great when you say it with a lot of passion and vigor, the power of an entrepreneurial mindset, but actually in most cases ends up just being gyan, or not that much, it doesn't actually show up in actual substance or gives you anything specific or actionable. And in fact, I'd argue that the power of an entrepreneurial mindset, it's actually, it actually has the ability to drive you a little bit crazy if you go into it in a lot of depth, right? Looking at my example as well, I'm all of 20 years old, working 80 to 100 hours a week, and to build a grocery company, there must be something a little bit wrong with me, right? I think that, and that's probably attributed to the fact that we are, just so deep into building out this company. A mindset like that can drive you insane. But if you actually double-click on the power of if you double-click on what an entrepreneurial mindset actually means, it can be incredibly powerful if you really sort of take time to understand its implications. If any of you have gone through the process of building your own business, most of you would probably come to me, whether it succeeded, didn't succeed, whether you're still in the process of building. Most of you would tell me that the journey of falling in love with that business itself was, not just inspiring, but probably pushed you to do a lot more than you thought you were capable of doing, right? And that, I think, is the essence of what I want to talk about today. Putting yourself in a position where, you fall in love with the business, you're deep into that entrepreneurial mindset. It might drive you a little bit crazy, but at the end of the day, it pushes you to do things that you might not have, initially thought that you were capable of doing, right? And so, yeah, with that, I think I'll start the speech that I had. What I was thinking is, to give all of you a quick run through of what the journey has been building Zepto from zero to where it is today. And more importantly, just taking you through a couple of anecdotes along that journey that, at least to me, was, really illustrated the power of having an entrepreneurial mindset to push, two, teenagers that really had not a great idea of what they were doing into building a business, that's currently doing thousands of crores in annual sales. So yeah, that I think is the context. I'll start with our early days building Zepto. Back then it was called Kirana Cart. My co-founder Kevalia and I, we used to deliver from, ourselves in local neighborhoods. And the reason why we got into grocery in the first place was in the first lockdown, we were in a position where, all the offline options were not accessible. The online options were taking 7, 8, 9 days to deliver in many cases. It was the first lockdown, right? It was mid-2020, that chaos was just ensuing. And, as two bachelors that really couldn't find our own apartment to live in, because, understandably no landlord wanted two 6-foot-tall bachelors, hanging around in a 1 BHK. We had to, sort of live where Kevalia had lived growing up, and most of the people around us were elderly. Most of the neighbors that we had, back in Bombay ended up being elderly. And just seeing them struggle through grocery in the first lockdown pushed us to say, hey, this is very clearly a problem. Why don't we actually just start, delivering ourselves, see what happens, right? If we can delight a couple of people around us, build something from scratch, it might be interesting. And so we got pushed into grocery mainly out of our own sort of volition of saying, okay, it's clearly a very painful process right now. Let's see if we can solve something for the 50, 75 people around us in our neighborhood and take it from there, right? And slowly, I think that initial service of us, delivering groceries to other people started scaling. Started as a bit of a WhatsApp group chat. Eventually we made a pretty terrible app that a couple hundred people started using. And as it started scaling, we started hitting roadblocks, because the customer experience that a handful of guys delivering groceries ad hoc, it was not something that could have scaled. Like, it was the items that we delivered in the early days were wrong. The pricing was all messed up. The delivery times were 60, 75, 90 minutes, right? The customer experience was pretty underwhelming. And for us, we took a step back and said, okay, this was probably a couple months into the project, and we had sort of gotten obsessed with the idea of solving this problem statement, right? And which I think is sort of the core of an entrepreneurial mindset, just having obsession. At that point, we basically took a step back and said, how do we push ourselves to find the right customer experience, to build the right product that can actually take, scale in a bigger way that we are currently operating right now. And for us, to give you a sense, we started with, we started doing everything we could, with our own two hands to really get a sense of what customers actually wanted on the ground. I mean, to give you some anecdotes, Kaivalya and I used to deliver groceries at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning on rickshaws, just because, we felt that having a 24/7 service was important back then, and there were no delivery partners available. But that pushed us to a point where we were talking to customers at 3 o'clock in the morning outside their doorstep, and actually got a sense of what made them tick, right? How could we serve them better? The other thing that we used to do, as a function of having 24/7 service was customer support 24/7, right? And so, sleeping in our shared bedroom, every day, we would have a big phone next to our beds that just went into complete fire alarm mode every time somebody called for customer support at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I remember, and this was, probably not even that long ago, probably a year and a half ago. We would get a massive call, both of us would just get shocked. We would wake up, we would go wash our faces, pick up the phone, say, hello, this is Kirana Cart customer support. How can we help you? At 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And all of those things, right? Delivering to customers ourselves late at night, picking up customer phone calls, and even, getting kicked out of, buildings where we try to convince customers to use the app, right? We, went into the nice society buildings in Bombay and tried to convince customers in the reception that, hey, why don't you try out our app? Why don't you try out our app? And eventually getting kicked out by the security there. All of those things just put us on the edge where the actual customer lay. And we did things that we didn't really feel like we were capable of doing. And, to some extent, we went a little bit crazy trying to get that done, until we actually put ourselves in a position where we knew exactly what needed to be done, right? From a customer experience lens forwards, right? How do we get a product that can actually scale with better delivery times, better quality, better assortment, and better pricing, right? And so that's sort of the early days where I think that obsession of building something from scratch put us in a position where, we did crazy things that we didn't think we were capable of. And that actually ended up getting us the answer, right? What customers needed, because we put ourselves face to face with them. I think the second, example that I have, or the second, anecdote that I have on sort of how an entrepreneurial mindset pushed us into building Zepto. Once we sort of got that initial product market fit, the product started scaling, we put ourselves, we got a little bit of a lucky position where we were able to raise some capital from some phenomenal investors. And it was time to take the next step on scaling up. And when we had that, milestone, we realized that our business is fundamentally supply chain. It's extremely complex. It requires a lot of rigor and a lot of specialist, execution. And so we knew we needed a very senior team on day one of people that have done this in the past, for decades, right? And so the first thing that we did as two teenagers sitting in our apartment with some capital raised, is we said, let's hire a leadership team. And, two of us in our sort of naive teenage selves just thought we could get on calls with, senior vice presidents at Amazon or vice presidents at Flipkart and just convince them to join the company. And we were wrong, right? So most of them said, what the hell is going on here? The two of you guys are a little bit crazy. You've got this crazy idea. You've gotten a little bit of traction, but this is not something that I'm willing to just quit my job and join you guys for. And so it took us a couple of months, right? We struggled. And honestly, we didn't think we'd be able to get over the line, hire the right people we needed to actually get to the next stage of our scale-up journey. Eventually, though, we started making progress. We pushed ourselves. I wrote down a little script of how to pitch a new candidate that I memorized, right? We used to do, recruitment calls from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., almost daily. And that put us in a position where we started making a little bit of traction. We started getting the right set of folks who were almost convinced that this might be the right opportunity for them, right? Maybe these, two crazy guys were onto something that could have been, a larger scale-up journey. And I think at that point, we just said, how do we get them over the line? They're so close. We can, it's been 2-3 months now of trying to hire the right people. We have it within our grasp. How do we get them over the line, right? And so what we had to do, very simply is, again, instead of that crazy entrepreneurial mindset, not something that I'm particularly proud of, but to fly down to wherever they were, whether it was Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, go to their houses, sit with them and their wives, and convince them face to face to join us in the middle of the second wave of lockdown, right? And I think that, and or not in the middle, probably a little bit towards the end of that. And I think that again was just sort of something that I would not have never imagined myself doing 6 months earlier, 3 months earlier, but sitting with, a senior leader from Flipkart and his wife and just, convincing them that I'm not insane. I think that put building this business in a little bit of perspective, right? That, okay, there is something you need, a little bit of craziness and a little bit of that, entrepreneurial mindset to do things that most people are not willing to do, right? The last anecdote that I'll leave you guys with on, what an entrepreneurial mindset can do is, when we started that scale-up journey, the business started growing 30 to 40% a week. We were doing 500 orders a day, 1,000 orders a day, 1,500 orders a day, 2,000 orders a day, and it just started going crazy. And we knew we needed capital to expand, right? And so all of a sudden, at that point, we were probably 19 years old. We had to raise, 60 to 100 million dollars very quickly if we wanted to 10x the business from where it was. And I remember just thinking, I've just hired these guys, we've just started scaling. It's been, 2-3 months since we crossed that milestone. It's been 2-3 months since we actually figured out what we wanted to do, and it started growing much faster than any of us expected. Now I have to put myself in a position where I have to, put on a, nice jacket and a shirt, go talk to investors that are, 2.5 to 3 times my age in some cases, and convince them to give me tens of millions of dollars, in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars, to build out this business. And putting yourself in that position, right? There are again 2 options: either you freeze or you go for it. And again, right, that sort of obsession with seeing the business get to its potential. We knew that this product could get to that scale very quickly and could scale even beyond that. I mean, in our shoes, we said, if we don't do this, somebody else will. And it's up to us now to take a step back and get over the line with investors. And so I think in the span of 7 days, I called up sort of our early stage investor, Suvir Sujan, who's the managing director of Nexus. And he was sort of nice enough to actually come down, spend a week with me, and just train me, almost like a father figure, right? Put on a jacket, shirt, this is what you say to investors, these are the Excel models you need. He gave me a book, right, called Venture Deals by Brad Feld, which goes through the venture raising process. And I had to speed read that in a couple of days, right? And I just went through this crazy boot camp with him, someone, who's the founder of Bazi.com and has started one of the largest venture funds in the country. And I remember just being grateful, to be in that position that someone had, put in that much conviction in our business that they were willing to spend time to actually help us personally scale. And, more importantly, again, right, if we mess this up, the business wouldn't end up getting to its end potential. And so, yeah, I think that crazy boot camp, put me into, rooms that I would have never imagined being in, right? Rooms that people see on TV screens, right? Large deals, large numbers, glass tables, and suddenly had to sort of become 20 years older than I am right now and be sort of capable in those rooms. And again, right, I don't think any of that would be possible without just the crazy mindset that it takes to build this business. And so when I look at all those 3 anecdotes, right, looking back at how we've built the company, it's obviously, it's obviously been a pretty crazy 18-month journey. But had we not had people that just foster that mindset of audaciousness, that mindset of craziness, like Suvir, like the early people that we brought on board, like the people that took bets on us, we would not have even been in a position where we could have fostered that mindset, let alone helped it, let alone positioned it to make us, scale and grow this quickly. And so yeah, that's what I'll leave all of you with, right? When you hear the term power of an entrepreneurial mindset, it sounds again like yarn, it sounds like rubbish. That again is great, when it's said on paper, but actually doesn't materialize into anything of value. But if you take a step back, you have the right people that are nurturing you, helping you learn, and if you actually go for it with crazy amount of vigor and conviction, you can put yourself in a position very quickly where you can start doing things that you never thought you were capable of, right? Where Kevalia and I, which were two sort of good-for-nothing teenagers that really had no idea what we were doing, forget about a large business, but couldn't even figure out our way around a college campus, right? The only sort of mental power that can take two silly kids into a business that has some meaning is sort of the journey that entrepreneurship puts you through and the mindset that it forces you to take. And so yeah, I leave all of you with that. Thank you so much for the time. It's wonderful being here.